Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Occupation Motherhood Life on Tap meets At the Well. Really excited to have 5 esteemed alumni with us, and not just on stage, we also have a variety of alumni out in the audience as well. Nancy Briggs is here. She once had my job and Caitlin Bauer's job. We have a few others scattered throughout. So the great thing about tonight is, unlike previous Life on Taps, the speakers won't be the only ones speaking. There will be a conversation after a brief introduction where you'll be able to ask questions, and we'll just get the conversation going, facilitated by the alumni that are up here, but then also by yourselves. So feel free to pitch in during that part. And again, after all the questions and the speaking, we will break once more to have just one-on-one time. So if there's anything you're dying to ask that you didn't want to ask in front of everybody else, you'll be able to go up and speak to them. So I am excited to introduce first our speakers. We have Alex Klaassen, we have Jennifer Flippen, Mrs. Maria O'Brien, Colleen Fier, and Kate Leonard. And they'll go through and they'll tell a little bit about what they do, how they ended up getting to that point, why they did it. And it's really exciting to see not just the ladies here tonight, but also some of the gentlemen, because I'm sure there's plenty of future husbands out there, and times might call for your future spouse to either bring in supplemental income or work inside, outside the home. So great to have you here. If we get a round of applause for our speakers.
Hi, I'm Kate Leonard. My maiden name is McMahon. I'm Bridget and Gemma's sister, so you guys probably know the McMahons. I graduated in 2002 with a BA in philosophy, and then proceeded to get a job in an insurance company in the accounting department, and I've been doing accounting for about 20 years now. So I got married at 32 and had my first baby at 33. I was working full-time when I had my son. I went back to the office for about a month, and it was really difficult, and then ended up quitting and going to work for a company where I could work from home. So just to kind of give you guys an idea of numbers, most, we'll say on average, graduating from college, let's say you have $15,000 in debt. That's actually pretty low for the national average, for those of you who aren't aware of it. So if you marry someone who has $15,000 in debt, if you live in an area like Front Royal, with 2 student loans, rent, your basic utilities and everything, you're talking in the vicinity of $38,000 to $41,000 a year that you need to have annually. That's not what everybody makes walking out the door. And that's only if you have $15,000. A lot of people have a lot more. My husband didn't go to Christendom. My sister-in-law has $100,000 in undergrad debt. So this is going to be a reality for a lot of us. So guys too, the likelihood of you marrying, if you marry a college graduate, you're looking at some debt, and you need to think about the long-term plan and how you're going to repay those things, and how your family is going to function with children if you both have to work. So we were doing the work from home full-time with the baby, and it's really, really difficult. You think, oh, I'll schedule a conference call while the baby's napping. Then the baby skips their nap, or it's a short nap, and you're trying to keep the baby quiet, and you're on a speakerphone, and like, there's a lot of challenges. And so what ended up happening is we actually moved back to Front Royal about 1.5 years ago, because I was having a really difficult time managing it all on my own. I was having a hard time finding good childcare. I didn't want to put the baby in daycare. I wanted to know the people the baby was with. I wanted to be around him. So we moved out here so that my mom could help out, and I could work from her house, and the baby would be in the other room. And so one of the things I would say is really important is some type of community, whether it's your immediate family, whether it's your extended family, whether it's another mom that you trade on and off babysitting for. Because your natural inclination is to give your full attention to your children, but you also owe it to your employer or your client, whoever it is, to give them their full and undivided attention while they're paying you. So then I did that for about 2 years, and a couple months ago, my sister and I decided to start our own accounting business so that we were able to have more flexibility to be home with our kids. My husband's a police officer in town, so his schedule is pretty flexible. So now I'm able to schedule meetings when he's working or when he's off, and so he'll take the kids and I'll work, or I still do a lot during nap time. I do a lot in the evenings after they go to bed, and it works and it's great. But it's hard. It's hard to be like, okay, it's 9 o'clock, everybody's in bed, and the baby was up 3 times last night, but I need to put in another 3 or 4 hours to get this client taken care of. So that's where we're at currently, is trying to grow a business with 2 little kids running around, a 7-month-old and a 2.5-year-old. And so a lot of it's just being flexible, rolling with it, and for us it's making adjustments every year, every baby. How do we do this, you know? The one thing I would say is look at my career. I had 10 almost 15 years into a career by the time I had kids, so that made it a lot easier because I was already invested. So I had the opportunity to work from home. I had places to work from home. So I would encourage you, as you're looking at careers, especially women, look at careers that allow you the flexibility to work from home. Certain industries are much more friendly to it than others. And so just, it's not a be-all, end-all. It doesn't mean you're going to get married right out of college. I was, like I said, 10 years out of college before I got married. So, but it's something to keep in the back of your mind as you're planning. And those who are seriously dating someone, that's something you're going to want to probably explore sooner rather than later. So that's, I think, my 5 minutes. So.
Just jump right in. Okay. Obviously, I'm Kate's sister, Colleen, and I've been, I guess I'm also in the accounting area of business. My husband and I got married shortly, a year and a half out of college, and we didn't have kids for 5 years. And so I worked, and so that was fine, paid off a bunch of debt. It was great. I mean, we really wanted kids, but it was still great. But then we adopted our daughter, and I worked for Seton. Well, we moved here and then adopted our daughter, and I worked for Seton Home Study Grading. And I don't know if any of you all know my family's business, Cornerstone Construction, but I also work in their office. So I was really fortunate because I could work from home right off the bat, and also could take my kid to work with me because I was working in an office by myself. And so then, 2 years later, we had our second daughter, and she was really bad. Just a terrible child. She's really sweet now, but she was a terrible child. So I quit working for Seton, but I kept working for my family's business and just kept bringing her to the office with me. But like Kate said, it's really important. My mom now, my kids are both school age, but my mom watches them when I'm at work, and I only work 3 days a week. So I'm really fortunate in that regard to have a family business and have family nearby who can watch my kids. So I don't have to take the child care type of, it takes the child care worry off the table. And now that my kids are that old, even though I've worked all along, but we're starting this business together so that I can work more, you can work less. My kids are getting older, your kids are still young. But it's also really advantageous for me to have worked that long, because then I'm not out of the workforce for, 20 years or 30 years or however long a lot of moms are out for. So I'll be able to jump right back in, hopefully, if our business takes off. Hopefully we'll jump back in and we'll just make a success of it. But it's the biggest thing, I think, for me is my husband was extremely encouraging. He was really encouraging. I didn't actually ask him when we started this business together. I was like, he'll be fine with it. I talked to him later that night. He was totally fine with it. But he's super encouraging and super just like supportive about the whole entire thing. And I think that that's also something that's really important. Most guys don't want their wife to have to work. Sometimes circumstances necessitate it. Sometimes they don't. I'm a highly energetic person with 2 kids, so I have a lot of free time on my hands, and if I didn't work, I'd probably just spend money. So I might as well make money instead of spend money. So, I mean, it's been really nice for me, and I everybody's different. For me, it was a really good thing that I worked. Kept me from being bored. Kept me from getting into trouble. But, everybody's different and every circumstance is different, but that's mine, really.
Thank you, Colleen.
Is this okay? I think so. I'm Maria Gaetano O'Brien, and I graduated in 2002, same class as Kate. Yep. And I was an English major, and Tom McFadden helped me get my first job. He helped me with my resume, and then I worked at the Arlington Catholic Herald in Arlington for about a year and a half, I think. Maybe it was close to 2 years by the time it was all done, but I got married about a year after I graduated. So, and then we had our first son like 9 months later. So for me, it was very shortly after I was married that I was no longer working in a traditional job setting, and they were not at that time that friendly to work from home. So I switched into freelance writing and editing, starting with some places local that I would go in once a week, get the assignments, and then come home. And that was a nonprofit in Alexandria. And then when we moved back to Front Royal, I just started kind of widening, and I had several different clients. And then I also graded for Seton, which is a good job for an English major. So I would just echo a lot of what Kate and Colleen both said. I think there's a lot of commonality to our experiences, both the flexibility in finding jobs and the support of husbands, and being flexible just in your daily life when you're balancing kids. Catherine has my 6th baby back there, so there are times when I'm able to do a lot, maybe in between children, or when you can be in this moment where you have your kids in school and everything's going really well and you're getting a ton of work done, and then you have a new baby, and so you kind of work with where you are. But paying off debt was a huge motivation for me to keep working after I had my first baby, Jack. And I graduated with only $8,000 in student loans, which I think is really low compared to now, or just in general. So, and just over the years, depending on what my husband was doing, he was military in the beginning. So you can imagine when he got out of the military and was transitioning into the civilian life, it was really not just an extra that we had my income, but it sustained us during several different job transitions. He was in construction at the top of the market, and then everything crashed. So having a second income is not always just a luxury. It was sometimes really a necessity. So keep that in mind as you're preparing for life after college. That your husband might have a great job and everything's going great, but to always have skills that you can bring to the table and help the family can sometimes be a lifesaver, or just a way to keep out of trouble, So wherever you
Depends
are.
on who you are.
Yeah. This one is not trouble, just saying. But I'm happy to answer any questions after. And so right now I'm doing a combination of freelance writing and kind of building back up, because I was at a point where I was doing a lot a few years ago, and it was great, and I kind of took time off, and now I'm ready to kind of build back up. So freelance writing and online marketing are two of the things I do. I'm a webmaster also for a few websites, including my kids' school, so that helps too. Sometimes you can find a situation where you're helping at, if your children go to a private school and you're able to help, that can help with tuition. So there's a lot of ways to be creative and really bring something to the family financially, even above everything you do as a wife and or mother. So.
Okay, my name is Jennifer O'Gorman Flippen. I graduated in 1998, a long time ago. I got a BA in history. I kind of flipped around. I think I didn't really see myself as having real abilities that anyone would really, I could do, I worked at Seton, just kind of basic, and I can answer a phone, but I didn't really see myself as having any special skills. I admire, people who they go out and they get an internship. So my story is basically, I worked at a few places. My husband went back to school during that same market crash with the construction. My husband went back to school to get his business degree in California. And while there, my friend was telling me about how she got into Etsy, ETSY, It's an online group of stores where people just make handmade things. And there are a bunch of Catholics in the area who sell things on Etsy. And so my friend was selling stuff, and I was like, okay, I'll do that. And I had this little thing that I liked making, these little dolls. But anyway, as time went on, and it was secular, and my store name was St. Anne's Pixies, which is kind of froofy. But I'm like, well, I'm just do secular stuff, but I want to have like a patron saint, you know. So I was like, St. Anne is a patron of housewives and seamstresses, or at least needlework. But anyway, so then I discovered other sellers on Etsy that were selling just Catholic stuff, and I discovered there was a real market for Catholic items. So I started moving into that. I could tell more in the details, but basically what I came upon was other people were selling these little peg dolls. You know, they were making families, and they were making like ninjas, and they were making, you know, Superman and Wonder Woman and whatever. So I started, well, why don't I make things? Because what I was doing before was a lot, like, it was intense. It was a lot of pieces. So I thought I would make something simpler. Well, because of me, it's not that kind of simpler. So anyway, I started making these things, and they did not start out that way. They evolved over time, and I've done a bazillion million of them. I'm probably the one person not in like Russia or like China who can like paint things. Like, I've gotten really fast. So anyway, with my long story short, I came upon that completely by accident. I was in California at the time, and California is awesome. Everyone is so like, yes, that's an awesome idea. That's so awesome. Does anyone see Legally Blonde? It is so true. Like, in California, it's like, yes, the world is open to you. Everything is wonderful. You know, I have my 4 kids, and we didn't get many bad looks. I get many more bad looks in the D.C. area for how many children I have than I ever did in California. You know, and so when I was trying to show my friends here, and they're like, oh, they're nice, and they're much cheaper than they are now. They were like, oh, they're nice, but maybe, I don't know if people want to pay that much for them, but whereas people in California were like, they're awesome, they're great. So my point is, I guess, is if you're going to go into something artsy, don't be, the East Coast is wonderful and staid, and they're very responsible, but they're not great for innovation or like artsy stuff so much. And my other advice is make sure, my other advice is Etsy is a great place to sell. You do want to try to find a niche or something that you're really good at. But it's great. I couldn't ask for anything more. I started my prices low and I moved up. And my advice would be make sure you're not overextending yourself because you want to be cheap enough. Because I did that for a while and I got so burned out. So, and it's a wonderful problem to have. I had so much business that I was literally like, paint, homeschool, paint, go to sleep. Homeschool, paint, go to sleep. And so I finally had to say, can't take anymore. So, you know, and I still have orders. I've got orders to do. I guess I'm just kind of boggled that I made a success of it. So anyway, I'll pass it on to you. Okay.
Well, once the dolls reach the back, if someone could just bring them back up to the front, that'd be awesome.
My name is My name is Alex Doylan Klaassen. I had one sister that went here a few years ago, I think before anyone else's time here. Well, Greg probably was in class with her. But I grew up in Ottawa, Canada, so claimed fame with the McNeelys and the Lemieux and Danielle, and the Jalsbecks and anyone else from Ottawa, Canada. So when I graduated in 2004. My husband was a senior, I was a freshman at the time, and we started dating. Yep. Parents were not happy. Anyways, we got married right after I graduated from college in 2004. Because I was a Canadian living in the States, I did not have my visa to work in the States right away. It took a while to get that. And I started off at Christendom teaching Irish dance. I had competed all my life until I went to college, like right before I went to college. And I came here to take a break from all of that. I just came to go to college. And Danielle Daly at the time, a few of you would remember her, was a phenomenal Irish dancer. And she was teaching just a little group of students. And she asked me to take over for her, which I did. And some of my first students were like, the O'Reilly girls are here, I know, the Millers, some of the Millers are here. Anyways, they were like little. I have pictures. Anyways, and I started off with a little group, and that grew and grew. And right before I got married, I had a group of I think I had about 80 students at the time, mostly from faculty, alumni, staff from the college. And then right before I had my first child, I decided to stop and take a little break from teaching Irish dance. We lived out in Annandale at the time, which is right near DC. And I was driving in once a week and teaching for 8 hours at the Christendom gym, actually. And it just got to be too much. And so I took a break. I had my son, and then I had a second child shortly, like 15 months after that. And then I decided to go back into the world of Irish dance and teaching. And so I started teaching for a local Irish recreational, not non-competitive, Irish dance studio out here. I also taught for another dance studio called the Northern Virginia Academy of Ballet that had an Irish dance segment. But I guess it's a little different because I taught outside the home. I never worked from the home. So I would leave the house, probably the most I worked was 3 times a week. I have 5 children now. And so I just retired last year, and I left the home 3 nights a week, and I would teach from anywhere from 4 to 8 hours a night. All those classes. And that, on top of that, we did performances. We had a little like recreational show class that we did. We danced at wineries and at high schools. And it was busy. It was a lot of extra time on top of the class studio time. But I have to say, you have to strike a balance between what's going on at home and the extracurricular job. My husband has always had a job. He's always worked in insurance, currently for a company in Ohio, but he works from home. And since my part-time job was out of the home, it worked out really well that I could leave the kids with him and I could teach dance. Even if he was still on the clock, you could say, we would, trying to move you on for the kids, and I would run out the door. And then at 5 o'clock when he was done work, the movie would be shut off and life would just go on like normal. But I was gone about 3 nights a week. It got a little tough. I just had my 5th 6 months ago, and I did quit teaching dance for good, I say. 6 months ago, I always say that, then I go back to it. But I officially am done. But something I wanted to share with you guys was, it's very, very real life. I worked because I liked it. I love teaching dance. I love the people I teach, both adults and kids. It was a lot of fun. And it was never really a necessity, you could say, because my husband's always had a pretty good job. But the extra money is really nice. But reality came crashing down. I had been married, Kate and Colleen, Maria would probably all remember this. I have been married for about 2.5 years maybe, and my husband, a little overweight but perfectly healthy, had a really bad asthma attack one day. And he went to the hospital, got a EpiPen shot, whatever it's called. Went home that night. He came in and woke me up at 4 in the morning. My second child was about 5 months old at the time. And he said he had to go to the ER. He was having problems breathing. I was like half asleep. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. So I remember I rolled out of bed, and by the time I got into the living room, we lived in Marshall, Fauquier County at the time, he was passed out on the couch. And I remember this ring of blue around his face. And for the first time in my life, I called 911. And they came, they rushed into the hospital. It was crazy. It was crazy intense. He was on a respirator for 3 days, and they were amazed there was no brain damage, and they were amazed that he came back out of it 3 days later. I mean, Maria's husband came and visited everyone. It was pretty, I have photos, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like that was a pretty traumatic time in my life. But reality came crashing down there because my first thought, honestly, my first thought was, if he dies, who am I going to marry? And I did. And I picked, yes. Colleen, they know far too much about me. Anyways, I picked a poor, some of you probably know him. Anyways, I won't say his name. I picked Tom's dying to know. You want to know who it is? Okay, I'll tell you who it is. It was Fran Corey. I picked Fran Corey. I picked the only bachelor friend of my husband's, and I was like, what am I going to do if he dies? Like, I was not thinking straight. I shouldn't have driven to the hospital. I shouldn't have called his boss at 4 in the morning to tell him he couldn't be in at work. And then I went and picked this poor random schmuck to be, like, the future Mr. Klaassen, Mr. like whatever. Anyways, you don't think straight when things are kind of in a chaotic moment. But anyways, the point of that is, that was my first thought. My second thought was, obviously, that's retarded. I'm not going to do that. So I was like, can I make, if that had come to reality, what could I do? What could I do to support, these 2 little kids at the time if my husband had not made it, which I did not expect him to make it because he was so choked up. He had been unconscious for however long before they finally got into the hospital.
The machines couldn't even hook up to him. They actually had a big guy like with a bellows over his mouth, pumping the air into his lungs. It was bad. Anyways, but could I have made? I could have made enough. It would have been tough, but I could have made enough teaching dance, and on the side I also tutored Latin. I could have made enough to support the kids if I had had to, or I would have moved back home, obviously. But that was definitely a moment of reality for me where I realized that, you know, it's good to have something else to do with your life. It's good for you, you know, especially you girls, to have something that you can fall back on if necessary. That, or if your husband loses a job for any reason and you need to just get enough money just to pay the mortgage, you know? And I'll finish up here, but like some of these other girls, I know Maria definitely, I didn't have a lot of school debt, but like Colleen, I like to shop. And so we did build up a lot of debt. Yes, we probably all do like to shop. I have a shoe fetish. Anyways, we built up a lot of debt. We went through cars and shoes like water. And we built up a lot of debt, and we paid it off with my extra income and my husband's income. You know, we went on the Dave Ramsey plan and we paid off that debt. And we are pretty much almost debt free, I can say. And that was a combination of his hard work and my hard work. And when you work hand in hand like that, and at the balance, it's all a balance. It's amazing the stuff that you can accomplish with that. So that's it. There you go.